Mike Hippel. Our host is Jennifer Schubring. We hope your school year is going awesome. We are from the Wisconsin AAC network. WATRN came out of our school committee. Our website offers excellent tools and good information to share back at your school, with AAC communicators and their families, or just with anyone and everyone. Today we are going to be talking all about tools to help the students with the most cognitive disabilities. Today we were lucky to have our amazing friend Ashlyn Hudson to speak on Boardmaker 7, and later on Sharon Redmond to discuss how to teach reading. Since we are talking about students who have the most cognitive disability today, I thought I would share something. I am sorry if I start to cry when I am speaking. Last Friday I lost my grandma. Like everything else in my life, I think about how do we teach deaf to someone who have a cognitive disability. We want to help our student families out through this hard time, but how can we do that? I don't have all of the answers, but the most important thing that we can do is be there for that family. We love to hear how you are doing. Email me or Jennifer with questions or ideas. This is our website. Wisconsin AAC Network is all volunteers, so join and help out or donate to help cover the costs of our website. Another great organization is United States Society of Augmentative Alternative Communication. USAC is the only society that work for and with family members, AAC communicators, and professionals. Please think about joining.
Yeah.
So there's USAC, the United States Society of AAC. I really need to put this at the beginning of the presentation because you always put it at the beginning and I at the end. And here are some resources, the usac.org website, the Wisconsin AAC network.org, which Mike started, and then a few others are within the presentation as well. So back to the beginning, the QR code is here, or the bit.ly is also there if you need access to the presentation. There it is. I am recording, so if you want to turn off your cameras if you don't want to be recorded, you can share out your thoughts in the chat as we go along. Ashlyn, do you want people to unmute and ask their questions? Put them in the chat, doesn't matter. Save them towards the end. Questions or...
As I'm going through the presentation, if they could put them into chat, that would be great, but I have reserved a little bit of time at the end where we could unmute and really dig into some of the questions that people might have.
Okay,
so if that works.
And I'll be moderating the chat. So if there's anything that I think is applicable to where you're at, I will try to interject or save questions towards the end. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat, and then make sure we always share a lot of resources. So make sure that you click on those little 3 dots in the chat and save that chat so you have those resources after the meeting. The meeting is being recorded. I still do not have the last meeting captioned, so it will probably be a little bit before I get to both of them. Unfortunately, it's the end of the school year and it's just crazy time. So with that, I will hand it over to Ashlyn and you can get started.
Awesome. So Jennifer, do I need to turn on transcript or is it already rolling? I want to make sure that that's working out if it...
Yep, it should be good.
Okay, good to go.
I see it, Ashlyn. It's coming across.
Okay, fantastic. All right, so I'm Ashlyn Hudson. I am a member of the learning team at Toby Dynavox, and I present almost exclusively on Boardmaker. So I'm super excited to be here to talk to you all today about Boardmaker. Thank you so much for having me. In addition to myself, a member of our team is here, Allie Pettigrew, and she will be here kind of helping to monitor the chat as well, and she can answer some of the other questions that come in. So you have both of our brains here with you today. I'm going to talk for about an hour about Boardmaker 7. I know that some of you are familiar with Boardmaker, probably have used it in lots of iterations like me, way back when it was a bunch of pictures in a binder. I've used a disc, and now are maybe using the online version or have shifted to Boardmaker 7. No matter what version you've been using, I'm hoping today to kind of give you a nice overview of what Boardmaker 7 consists of and some of the features that maybe you're not as familiar with, particularly some of the pre-made curricula that are included and are all accessible. And with that being said, just kind of to reiterate what Jennifer said, please utilize chat to send those questions in. I try to watch it while I'm talking. And I know Allie will stay on it and Jennifer will be on there as well. As I can work those questions and answers into the presentation, I will. If I feel like it's something we need to dig a little bit more into, I might save it for the end. We will have a little bit of time at the end for that Q&A. All right. And I am actually going to turn my camera off only because my Wi-Fi has been a little wonky today and I want to make sure that it's running okay for you guys. So I'm going to just turn that off, but I'll turn it back on when we get towards the end. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. During the session today, I'm going to talk about 3 different learners and just kind of look at how they're being supported with Boardmaker. I know that all of you are probably out there utilizing Boardmaker with different learners, for different purposes, different reasons. So I just want to show you some of the different ways that we are seeing it used. So we're going to start off by talking about Aaron. He's a 6-year-old little dude, and he's getting special education support in a self-contained classroom. He goes out for inclusion time in the gen ed setting throughout the day. He's a super happy little guy, loves going to school. He does have limited verbal communication and difficulty with sensory overload. So we're going to take a look at some of the supports and activities that he uses during the day. Aaron responds really well to visual supports. He uses Boardmaker schedules at home and at school. Here we see Aaron using Boardmaker to follow the routine for the school day. It's going to help him stay on task, and he and his friends are using this to guide them through their day. I see someone on there is Boardmaker Queen. She's probably very good at making these kinds of schedules. So these are some of those print-based materials that we can make with Boardmaker. In addition to schedules, Aaron utilizes some behavior supports like this token board. It helps him stay motivated and on task throughout the day, letting him know when he's earned time to play with his blocks. His teachers and therapists love this because it's easy for them to go in and personalize supports using the templates in Boardmaker. Aaron needs a special curriculum to learn, can't just put paper and pencil tasks in front of him. He benefits from having engaging interactive things on his iPad, on his communication device. So he completes his work on this iPad, both in the special education classroom, and then he carries it down the hall with him to the general education classroom and has differentiated materials he can work on there as well. As I mentioned, Aaron is still working on his communication skills. He uses a curriculum called Core First Learning, which is ready-made materials included with Boardmaker. It's available both in print and interactive versions, and it supports him in learning to communicate with core words. This program provides him with lots of opportunities identifying, reading, and finding his words in meaningful ways. His teachers, his speech therapist, and his parent are all using the same program, which really helps with consistency and getting him to progress faster. The cafeteria is a challenging place for Aaron. It's noisy, there's a lot going on. Sometimes he forgets how he's supposed to behave. So he has this rule chart that we found in the Boardmaker community where he could go in, someone else had already made it, able to print it off and use it with Aaron to kind of review all of the different expectations of that setting. He's gotten familiar with this visual, so now you can just kind of point to the symbols as that indirect reminder when needed and rarely have to use verbal cues in the cafeteria, so able to really redirect with those nice visual cues with an activity that no one had to make because we found it in that Boardmaker community. So using both print and interactive activities and supports from Boardmaker, Aaron has a good day at school. He's progressing with academics, with communication, and with his behavior goals. Now we're going to switch gears and we're going to talk about Jalen. He is a high school student with a lot of energy, and as you can see, he has an amazing smile. Jalen also uses visual schedules. It's really important that he learn to complete self-care tasks independently. So we have this schedule set up for him to complete his morning routine at home. His schedule looks a lot different than Aaron's. He's using clocks on his schedule to match to the clock at home, keeping him on task, getting his whole morning routine completed in a timely manner. So able to go in and find a different kind of template to support in a different way, but still with the same concepts. Jalen also needs modified academic work, but he doesn't like it when he feels different from his peers. So he uses the Boardmaker Student Center on his iPad to learn and still look like the other 16-year-olds at school. He takes his iPad with him to inclusion classes and has activities to on the same topics as his peers. He can complete them without getting overly frustrated. And then he can also take that work home with him because that student center can travel with him on his iPad home where he has that repeated practice and he can show off and tell his mom all the cool stuff that he's learning and able to do. Jalen is an emergent reader, but he's super motivated to improve his reading skills. So he has started using another pre-made curriculum that's included with Boardmaker called Reading Avenue. This is another totally accessible curriculum that is based on research, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it soon. But it is a program that's designed to teach Jalen to read, giving him all that foundational knowledge he needs to progress into more conventional literacy programs. He particularly likes having access to lots of books and writing activities that he can complete without getting overly frustrated. Jalen gets frustrated with paper pencil tasks. It's been really challenging to motivate him to complete work at times. So using Boardmaker on the interactive whiteboard and on the iPad have increased his engagement greatly, and teachers are starting to see progress in all content areas. Jalen has a job in the community, and just like that schedule he's using to keep him on task at morning, at home in the morning, he's using this to keep him progressing on his job at school, helping him be more independent, not having to check in with his manager or his job coach every single step of the way. So using those schedules isn't just beneficial for our learners in those self-care tasks and at school, but it's also a way to increase their independence for where they're going to be later, that future planning. Our third friend is Sarah, an energetic middle schooler. Sarah uses an eye gaze device throughout her day for communication. She also uses it for education. She utilizes SnapCore First as her software for communication on her eye gaze device. But within that same device and within that software, she's also able to complete her educational activities utilizing that same access method. In science, she's able to go in and sequence the steps for the scientific method. And out in the community, she can utilize her integrated calculator to participate more independently, doing those quick calculations and really participating in those different environments and supporting that independence. All the while still quickly able to navigate back to her communication software. So there's lots of things that we can do to support a wide variety of learners with Boardmaker. It gives access to those visual supports, which we know support comprehension, memory, and participation. That token board Aaron uses gives him those visuals to know how close he is to earning his break. He doesn't have to sit there and figure it out or how long he's going to have to wait before he gets those blocks. We've given him those clear expectations. Jalen's schedule helps him know what tasks are expected of him at work, and Sarah uses visuals to quickly find words on her communication device. Boardmaker also allows us to provide differentiated instruction. Kiddos with disabilities have diverse learning needs. We have to be able to go in and create and give them access to materials that they're really going to be able to have success with. So using Boardmaker, you can create those accessible activities on any content. Activities are fun and engaging, and we have a lot that will also collect data for you so you know exactly where to move your instruction to next. And finally, Boardmaker supports communication. We know everyone needs a means of communication, and with Boardmaker, you get access to those printable and editable supports. There are core boards and books, templates to add content to low-tech devices like GoTalks, and curriculum that supports communication and literacy. Boardmaker 7 does all of these things with 3 components. And this is where things can get a little bit different from previous versions. I'm going to spend just a little bit of time talking about each of these 3 pieces and how they work together. With Boardmaker 7, we now have an installed editor. It's where you create your artistic workspace, your canvas for creating your amazing activities. We still have a website, and this is where you go to manage activities and find some of that pre-made curriculum that we've already got ready-made for you to utilize. And the third component is the Student Center. And this is where students, teachers, and therapists play those activities. What we're going to do now is we're going to move through each of those components. I'm going to really give a nice overview of what all you can do in there, and then I will demonstrate each of those pieces. So that first component is the Boardmaker editor. It is that newly installed software that you can now have on a Windows or Mac computer. You can also download it to some Chromebooks. We know that there have been some bumps and some issues with this software, and we are steadily working on updates to get the software to where it should be, so that it is the Boardmaker we all know that it can and should be. We actually have a pretty big release coming out in the spring or summer that's going to fix some of the syncing issues and some of the other big issues that are impeding the performance. And we have some other additional supports and releases coming out in the near future. So if you have downloaded the editor and you're having some issues with it, just know that we are actively working to improve it. That being said, if you've downloaded it and you're not having any issues with it, or if you're new to Boardmaker, let me just tell you a little bit about the editor. Like I said, it's where you go to create activities. You can still create from a blank canvas. Those of you, like our Boardmaker queen here, who have used it in the past, where you just started from scratch, blank canvas, and you added in all of the amazing content, can still go in there and do that. But we also have over 200 different templates that you can go in and choose from and create activities that either are print-based or are interactive. The editor is also where you can upload and edit activities that you have made in previous versions, or if you go into our Boardmaker community, which we'll talk about in a minute, and find activities that others have made, you can pull those down into the editor and make changes and customizations. We also have this really exciting new curriculum called Activities to Go that is print-based and editable, and so that lives in the editor, and we're going to touch on that soon. And the third thing that you can do in the editor is you can actually play and preview activities. So if you've got an activity in the editor, you can open it up in play mode and either utilize it, go through that book with your learners, complete that matching activity, or just see what it's going to look like when it's in play mode in front of your students in the Student Center. So let's just take a second and look at some of the different kinds of pre-made templates that are available for you to use in the editor, focusing mostly on interactive here. So things like these books, having those buttons already created with the actions embedded, it's a huge time saver. All you have to do is go in and add that content. We know how important it is to provide access to books for students, no matter their reading level. That's what's going to help us move those literacy skills along, right? So with these variety of book templates, you can easily make books on any topic that your students can either read or hear read to them, all with whatever access method they utilize. I'm super excited about these new book templates because they really considered access when they were designing these. You look at the white space around the buttons, how spaced out they are. It's really to help support our eye gaze users and our learners that are utilizing switch scanning, or even those who have differences with direct access, different touch needs. So some really great book templates. We also have things where you can create a variety of activities to assess learning, like this matching activity, where you can address vocabulary or science and social studies concepts. And just remember, we're not tied to those symbols, those PCS symbols that are kind of one of the things that Boardmaker is known for. Those aren't the only options when you're creating your activities. If your students are better engaged and more motivated when they see real life images or even pictures of their own dog in an activity, we can use web images or our own photos in all of these activities. We can even go in and add the dog barking to this math activity if that's what's going to increase their engagement and get them excited about learning one-to-one correspondence. We also have tons of different writing templates that allow students to have access to that alternative pencil. They can focus on what they want to say and really begin navigating that writing process and starting to see themselves as writers rather than focusing on how to form letters and putting that pencil to paper, which can be frustrating for a lot of our learners. All of our writing templates include an accessible keyboard. So you'll see that in all of the templates. And once you click on that, it gives them access to a keyboard, but also has predictive text buttons. Again, just further supporting them as they learn to write. We want to give our learners a ton of opportunity to practice writing for a purpose. And as they get more proficient with these templates, with these kinds of prompts, we can scale it back and we can give them less support so that they can start progressing their writing skills and moving along that continuum. In addition to academics, we also have lots of pre-made templates for behavior supports. Like those schedules we saw Erin and Jalen utilizing, there are tons already set up and ready to go for you. These schedules help our students stay on task, increase their independence with routines, right? There's a wide variety of schedules available, both print and interactive. I've been utilizing the interactive schedules a lot in my virtual OT sessions. They're really great to pull up on the screen and have a dynamic way of letting my learners know what to expect in our sessions. But there are other things like first thens and token boards. There are even a lot of templates you can utilize for social stories. And lastly, we have templates to support communication. This is our pre-made core communication book that aligns to SNAP Core First, which is a nice low-tech option. This, like many of our other templates in Boardmaker, are already filled in. It's already completed for you, and you can use those pre-made activities just the way that they are, or you can go in and make edits to customize them for your learner. So if you like this core communication book and these tabs are perfect and you like the language that's on each of these pages, but maybe you want to go in and change these boards down here, all of these are editable. Or if you've got a learner who's just now starting with core and this is too much, you can go in and hide some of these, print it out, and just have the words you want them to focus on targeting. So some nice different ways that you can support them. And just remember, we also have all those templates for device overlays, as well as activities that support speech and language goals. The other component that is part of the editor that's new is our curriculum activities to go. This is a monthly thematic curriculum designed to give children meaningful access to grade level topics. All the content is provided for you, but like those other activities I was just mentioning, they can be edited. So it targets the most common life skills, science, and social studies topics that are addressed in general education classrooms with the aim of helping our learners build their knowledge and their vocabulary. These are all of the themes and units that are already pre-made. It is 10 months worth of curriculum meant to kind of stretch out for a school year. So you could start the year off doing school life and then each week hitting one of the units. Or if you wanted to go in and just pull units based on your learner needs, you could do that. I personally, working with some of my OT kiddos, have utilized this personal hygiene unit and the activities, as well as feelings and some of the 5 senses materials. So it's really great to go in and explore all of this pre-made material. Within Each of those units, these are all of the activities that you will find. Books, games, vocabulary lessons, writing activities, recipes and crafts. And because we know that not all of our learners are on the same level, and we can't just put the same materials in front of everyone and expect success, each of these activities are differentiated for 3 different levels of instruction. So it's a really nice way to go in and find that just right challenge. Remember, all of this is in the editor because it's editable. So when we talk about some of the other curriculum, it lives on the website, but this Activities to Go curriculum lives in the editor. And that brings me to the demonstration portion where we will actually go into the editor and take a look around. I'm going to open that installed software on my computer. Here I am on my dashboard. A couple of things that I want to point out. If you are looking for the way to pull in your old activities that you've made that are just amazing, that you made either in version 6 or Studio, you can click right here on this open button and pull those activities in from previous versions. If you're wanting to create a new activity, you'll click right there on New. This is going to be super high level. If you're wanting more in-depth looks at the software, I'm going to make sure and give you all some resources that you can check out for some on-demand learning following this session. So here I have all of my recently used templates. If I want to create from blank canvas, I can click right there on blank. If I want to explore all the printable templates, I can come right here and click on printable. If I'm looking for some of those communication supports, like those core communication boards that are already made, they're right there. I have device overlays I can scroll through and utilize. Here are some of those schedules, lots and lots of print-based activities. If I'm wanting to make an interactive activity, I click here on interactive, and I still have that table of contents over here with all of my different categories. Let's say that I'm really wanting to create a sequencing activity. Click right there on sequencing, and I see all of my sequencing templates that are available to me. You'll notice that they all have that yellow circle with the S. That means that I can create any of these from a sample. Already has the content added in for me. I can use it just the way it is, or I can make changes. You'll also notice that they have red circles with the letter P. Those are our performance tracking templates. Those are the ones that are going to collect data and let us see how our learners are doing. What are they getting right? What are they getting wrong? What do I need to go back and reteach? So if you're looking for those, you can filter and just show those performance tracking templates up here with that filter tab. Now, if I'm thinking I want to make a 4-step sequencing activity, I am going to actually select from sample just so you can see it's already made for me. Buttons are made, activities are embedded, actions are embedded, and my content is there. But I want to put some different pictures in. So I'm going to click right here on my first button. It says egg. So I'm just going to hit enter because egg is actually what I want to go there. But instead of a symbol, I'm actually going to search the web for a butterfly egg. Not a buttery egg, a butterfly egg. And once I find the web image that I like, I can click it, hit select, and then I'm going to put in that image of that butterfly egg. I like the caterpillar, I like the chrysalis, but we actually took a picture of the butterfly when we went to on a field trip last week. So I want to put in one of my own pictures here. So again, I'm just going to hit enter on my keyboard. I could change the symbol and choose any of these symbols here, or I could come down here to from file, navigate to wherever my pictures are on my computer. There's that butterfly we took a picture of, and I can plug it into the box there. We have lots of cool new features with the way we can search by, if I click over here, you can search by things that begin with certain letters or blends. You can search for sounds or letter combinations anywhere in a word, whole words, ends with, lots of different cool new features you can utilize with our search. We also have different languages that you can search in, so you can support those different language learners, all from right here within the editor. Okay, again, for time purposes, I am not going to go into all of that in super detail today, but I can support you all if you have any questions with any of that. If I want to see my activity in play mode, I can click right here on play. And it shuffled them up for me, and now I can.
That's right. Egg is the first item.
Complete the activity. I like the way it looks. I'm good to go. I'm going to click stop. And then the next thing that's really important that I want to point out is that I'm going to save this activity, but I'm going to make sure that I check to see where it's saving. We want this activity to save locally on the computer so that we can access it anytime we open up this installed software. But we also want it to sync to our website, that cloud storage, so that we can assign it to our students, or maybe it's the best activity we've ever seen and we want to make sure that our coworkers have access to it. So we want to share it with everyone out there in Boardmaker world. To do that, we're going to click up here in the top left corner. If you're on a PC, you'll see 3 lines. If you're on a Mac, you'll see the word file. Click there and then navigate to save as. And then here you want to make sure that it's going to this location, and I'll send some supports out so you'll all have access to this and don't have to remember it. But you want to make sure that it's syncing to your documents, your activities, and the email address that you're logged in with, so that the website knows where to look to find those activities when it's syncing between the two, the editor and the website. Okay, so I'm just going to say butterfly, give it a quick name, and click save. I also have the option with particularly like print-based activities to create a PDF from right here within the activity, and then I can print it out and have that print-based activity ready to go. All right, I'm going to click right here on Return to Dashboard. I see my butterfly activity is right here. If I hover over it, I can open it back up in edit mode by clicking on that pencil, or I can click on play mode and play the activity. What I'm going to do now is just very quickly show you where activities to go lives, and then we're going to just move right along. So we have a lot more I want to cover. If you click from here in the dashboard where it says My Boardmaker, you will see all of your saved activities right here under My Activities, and everyone should have this My Curriculum folder. When you click on My Curriculum and you select Add Curriculum, that's where you'll go to find activities to go. Don't worry, you don't have to remember all of this. We'll send out some supports following this session, but just know that this is where all of those different themes and units of content live. You can find them there, print them out and use them, or open them up in edit mode and make those changes. Okay, so that's a little overview of the editor. And now what I want to do is I want to talk about the next component, the website. Remember, this is now called myboardmaker.com. It's where we find pre-made interactive curriculum to teach core words, reading, and social studies. We're going to take a closer look at those in just a minute. It's also where you find the Boardmaker community with over 90,000 activities made by your peers, other therapists and teachers and parents. Those activities that you can use just as they are, or you can make changes to them and customize them. I personally never start an activity without checking the community first. It saves me a ton of time. I have found social stories on not biting, activities to work on zones of regulation, even activities to support recognizing core words. And I just earlier today found some matching activities about Harry Potter. So lots of stuff out there on the community. After you create stuff in the editor and you find stuff on the website, you can also use the website to assign stuff to your students so that they can access it wherever they are. And then when they complete those activities, you're able to go in and see how they're doing, collecting that data. The website is where you'll track that performance. So what I want to do now is spend just a little bit of time talking about the 4 pre-made curricula that we have on the website. These 4 interactive instructional solutions are all research-based and focus on key skills that you might be working on with some of your learners. Reading Avenue focuses on emergent reading. Book Bridge is a read-to-learn program that gives accessible activities to our students to engage with grade-level texts. Core First Learning supports children learning to find, use, and read core words. And Expedition Education focuses on building literacy skills and world knowledge with instruction about cultures around the world. So we're going to take a nice little overview look at each of these before we move on to talk about that third component. So Reading Avenue is a comprehensive reading program that was developed based on Dr. Karen Erickson's research on emergent literacy. If you're familiar with her research in her most recent book, which I know Sharon's going to be talking about in her portion of the presentation, the essential components of literacy instruction are shared reading, independent reading, alphabet knowledge, phonological awareness, shared and independent writing. So looking at all of those, this program was designed to create activities and books that address those areas in accessible ways. It is available in 3 different levels to support learners with varying literacy skills. So as you can see, at each unit, we have 8 different units. It targets different onsets and endings. Within each unit, there are 3 different levels. So if your first level, which we're calling avenues, this is Reading Avenue, Avenue A is very exploratory, errorless learning, giving students a way to learn to recognize these onsets and just playful ways to combine those onsets and those endings to start making connections between letters and sounds. The books and the writing activities are really going to help encourage those emergent skills. And then as they grow and progress through avenues B and C, the task demands increase, the comprehension level increases in demand, but all 3 avenues are appropriate to prepare learners for that conventional reading program. So if they work through Reading Avenue, all 3 levels, they have lots and lots of repetition with variety, with all these onsets and all of these endings. What I want to do now is just show you some example activities. So these are Avenue A activities. We start with just hitting a letter, and then you get to see some different words that start with that letter, that sound. So you get to start making those connections. It's errorless, it's exploratory. Just learners get to go in and have fun playing around with language. Then they can go and do letter identification activities where they're going to start trying to find that letter. So recognizing what it looks like. You'll notice that it's very simple. We're just focusing on the letter form. Then we have activities where we start to look for items that start with that sound. And that's kind of where we start with Avenue A. But as we get up, we start looking for words that end with certain sounds and have those certain rhymes. They also get to do onset rhyme exploration activities, really giving them the opportunity to play with sounds, hear rhymes and blends, giving them the opportunity to build words with those initial sounds. Again, it's errorless. Even if they make things that aren't words, it's going to let them hear what it sounds like, really focusing on blending those sounds together. And then as their skills develop, they focus on building words that are meaningful words, focus on individual letters. They get to start practicing with rhymes and sentences and all that good stuff. There are fun tongue twister activities, working on alliteration, and again, just playful ways to play around with words and language. There are 120 books, accessible books already pre-made in Reading Avenue, and they all include, you'll notice this Read with an Adult button, and that's to help support people who might be new with shared reading, giving them things that they can comment or questions that they can ask on each page. So those prompts are embedded into the books, but you'll also notice this Read on Your Own button, which our learners can utilize for independent reading. You can put several libraries in their personal library. So during independent reading time, they can pick the book they want to read, practice turning those pages with those buttons. They can look at the pictures and the words. They can make up their own stories. Do all of those things that emergent readers need to have time doing to progress along that continuum towards conventional literacy. The books also include phrases and fringe vocabulary related to the book to enable communication by the reader. So we can model hitting phrases like, I like this, or I think that's cool, while we're having that shared reading interaction right there within the book. But we can also use these buttons and say, what is that on the TV? I see a flag. So you can go in and model that language for them, and just know that these phrases stay consistent across the books, but this vocabulary changes book to book to give them the vocabulary and symbols based on that book content. Anne-Marie, I see your question. Yes, these books get assigned to the student in the Student Center, and we are going to get to that in just a minute. Great question. We have writing activities like this predictable chart writing to support that shared writing that our learners need to go through and see themselves, as writers. We can do this as a group or individually. And they go through and they complete the sentence multiple times, and then it puts their sentences into a book format so they can see the book that they've written. There are lots of other writing activities with varied levels of support. We've always got prompts that they can utilize. We've got those keyboards with predictive text, lots of ways to support them as they navigate those independent writing skills. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about BookBridge. This curriculum takes books commonly read in 2nd to 5th grade and provides accessible activities that teaches students vocabulary from the books, gives them comprehension activities with anchor, read, and apply tasks for each story or chapter in the books. And it also includes writing activities with different levels of support to provide accessible ways, again, for those students to write for a purpose. I know Sharon is going to share a bit about how she utilized some of this curriculum, the Poppleton and Winter unit, with her learners. So I'm just going to give an overview of this curriculum so you kind of have a little foundation. Each book has a quick lesson guide to help you plan instruction. There are also detailed lesson plans with scripting to really help you get started with implementation. In the lesson guides, you'll also find a link to either a chapter summary or reading extensions in Tar Heel Reader to give adapted books that are already pre-made for you to support as you go through these different books and activities. So BookBridge has engaging anchor activities to help activate the students' background knowledge and get ready to read. So with Poppleton and Winter, there's this stamping activity that allows the teacher or therapist to introduce the story. We're going to talk about icicles on a house. Let the students make their own winter scene. Really get them thinking about it and give them some context. So when they start reading the book, during shared reading, the teacher can refer back to the pictures they made and just have some different things to kind of help build the conversation around. Each chapter also includes a vocabulary routine, introducing the learners to the key terms they're going to see when they're reading. Learners are going to sort the words based on what their level of comprehension is. And then they get to hear the word's definition and see it and hear it in a sentence. The curriculum gives lots of opportunities for the students to use the word in meaningful ways, really helping them commit them to long-term memory. So they can choose a picture of the book to help them remember it. They can record something, or they can unscramble a sentence, or they can do all three, and you can go through and have lots of practice. Then you're going to read the book or the chapter together, and the curriculum includes a communication board with some of the vocabulary, so you can utilize that to support commenting and asking questions. And then after reading, we're going to complete an application activity. Each is available with 3 different levels of support to provide the students with that just right challenge. So first, with this activity, the learners pick a picture that they want to write about, and then they would select write, and they would either have those sentence starters and finishers that they could choose to write their sentences, or for the learners who maybe don't need as much support, they have these where they can come in and they can use phrases. They can select on the vocabulary or the core word tab to have access to those terms, or they can utilize that keyboard, always giving our learners access to those 26 letters of the alphabet so they can, we can encourage that creative spelling and really helping them learn to say everything that they want to say. And you see here across the top, we have those predictive text buttons that will change as they type and write. All right, so that's a little bit about BookBridge. And now we're going to do a crash course in Core First Learning. As I mentioned earlier, this is a curriculum that teaches students to find, use, and read 36 of the most highly used core words through reading, writing, and language activities. If you'll recall Aaron from the very beginning, he was using Core First Learning print-based books to support his communication goals, but they're also available with interactive. Learners get to practice hearing, reading, and finding the word with 3 books per core word. So we've got Where Did You Go, Go Fish, and Go, Go, Go. So 3 different contexts, 3 different ways to utilize this core word. The books are fun and engaging. You can read them multiple times while modeling the word for them, and also showing them where they can find the words in their communication systems. Just like some of the other curricula, we have writing activities that go along with these core words because we want our learners to have so many opportunities to practice using those new core words. So again, these have different levels of support where the student goes in and writes about where are you going to go today? So this one has some support included. They would select that starter and that finisher, but again, they can go in here and have access to that keyboard at any time. Core First Learning also includes some games like bingo and this matching activity to give continued practice in recognizing the word. Note here the lack of symbols. It's really helping our learner focus on the word. What does the word look like? We want to draw attention to that to help them learn to recognize it in lots of different contexts. All of these activities are interactive and accessible, so even our students using switch scanning or eye gaze can engage. And that brings me to our last curriculum, which I want to share with you all, is Expedition Education, another accessible curriculum addressing literacy skills, but also supporting knowledge about different places around the world. Each unit includes lessons focused on geography, history, and culture, still embedding those vocabulary activities. There's also interactive maps and books, and of course, differentiated writing activities. As we start to explore and take a look at this one, you will notice that the level of writing is a little bit higher than some of the other curriculum that we've looked at. So here is a sample book. This is they're formatted to look more like textbooks. So this is our textbook about Germany. It's going to provide information on geography, history, climate, the animals that live there, what the people do and what they're like. And the students can use these accessible buttons here at the bottom to hear the page read to them, or they can navigate it one sentence at a time. There are interactive maps that highlight landmarks and key geography features of the area. But students also can go in and find the country on a world map, learn about flags, and some really nice interactive activities to support that world knowledge. There are also some vocabulary lessons and activities like this game to support that vocabulary. And there are varied writing and comprehension activities like this graphic organizer, where the learner is going to go in and identify the main idea and supporting details from the texts. So when you click on these, some pop-ups appear and the learner can go through and select how they want to fill this graphic organizer in. Okay, so that was a lot of information about 4 very different curricula. But what I want to do now is make sure that you all know where those materials are and how to navigate that website. So I'm going to open up myboardmaker.com, that second component. So here I am at myboardmaker.com. If you've used BoardMaker online, it's formatted exactly the same. We still have our tabs up here across the top. And if I want to explore those pre-made curricula, I click right there on curriculum, And here I see Core First Learning, there's Reading Avenue, Expedition Education, and here's Book Bridge. For any of these, I can click on Use It, select the language that I want, and then I can come in and explore those different pieces. So if I click on Word 1 Go, I scroll down, I see I have these tools next to my activities. I can go in and I can play this activity in the Student Center by clicking play. Or if I want my student to have this book, I can click right there on Assign to Student. I can assign it to anyone, or I could just give it to Hermione and assign it. And now when Hermione logs into her Student Center, this book, this writing activity will be there waiting for her. The other piece that I wanted to show you, if I click here on my board maker, these activities align with those activities from my editor. And you'll notice that right here is that butterfly sequence activity that we completed that I made with you all watching. If I want to share it out into the community, I could click right there on share activity. Or maybe I want to assign this. And I know that my kiddo Zoe has been learning about the life cycle of a butterfly, so I want to assign it to her. And now Zoe will see that activity for her when she goes to log into her Student Center. If I want to search the community for an activity, I can click right there on that magnifying glass. And let's say I want to see if I can find anything else about butterflies. I just type butterfly right there. And there are lots of different activities that are already pre-made. I can go through and explore. All right. The only other thing that I want to show you all very quickly on the website, if you click on students and go to student management, I mentioned that one of the things that you can do in the website is manage your learners. So if I come in here and I click on Zoe's name, it takes me into her account. I just assigned her that butterfly sequence activity, but I actually don't want that to be the first thing she sees. I want her to do that hidden picture activity first. So I can click and drag and rearrange her activities. I can delete things that I've assigned to her, really manage what her experience is going to look like on the Student Center from right here. And I can click right there on performance results, and I can see what days she's been logging in. She hasn't been doing much in 2021, so I need to get Zoe back on the ball. But click on those, and then I can see what activities she's completing. And I can go and see, oh, she's not doing great on our flower bug sorting. I need to go back in and reteach that. So you can come in and see that data. All right, so that was your crash course and the website and the pre-made curricula. And that brings me to our third component, the Student Center. Very quickly, just want to touch on what you do with that piece. It is a free app that you can download to Windows, Mac, Chromebooks, iPads, or Toby Dynavox devices. This is where we're going to play our activities. All of those things that I've assigned to my students, either the things that I've made, found in the community, or assigned from that pre-made curricula, this is where my student's going to play those activities. They log in and everything I've assigned to them is there waiting. The Student Center is also what I'm using to play activities with my learners. So when I'm working with someone virtually, I open up that Student Center on my computer, share my screen, and we engage virtually. If I'm sitting next to a kiddo in a therapy session, I have it on my iPad, and we work through their activities that way. In addition to what you've assigned them, the app also has accessible math tools like a dice and a calculator, and some emergent games, which are really great for teaching cause and effect and for helping learners learn to navigate new access methods. So I highly encourage you to check out that Student Center. It's free. Even if you don't use Boardmaker, the Student Center might be something that you can utilize. Another key important feature of the Student Center, this is where we go to change access methods. So if our learners need support with their direct access, if they need us to add in touch enter or touch exit, if they're using switch scanning with 1 or 2 switches or eye gaze, I can go in and set them up in the Student Center for whatever access method. Also, whatever voice they're going to hear. I can go in and change that and customize if they need audio cues or some visual highlights. I can go in and make that experience for them what they need to be as independent as possible. Okay, so that brings me to our last little demo. I'm going to jump us over into the Student Center so we can look and see what it looks like for our students. So here it is installed on my computer. I'm in Zoe's account, and we were just in Zoe's account on the website. Sometimes it takes a minute to load new things, but I can, when Zoe logs in, she sees there's that plant hidden picture activity.
Uncover the picture.
Tells her to uncover the picture. I can say, okay, Zoe, what do you think we're going to learn about today? What do you see? What do you think is going to be? Oh, you see a girl? I see a girl too. What is she holding? Let's unclick some more. So we can go through, complete this activity. If I'm sharing my screen virtually, I can give her control of my computer screen. She can unclick them.
You uncovered the picture.
We're using Zoom annotation tools. She can show me which ones she wants me to click. So lots of ways you can go in and support learners virtually. And now I see up here, it's spinning those little green circles right there, which means it's updating. Here's that butterfly sequence activity that we just made. I clicked on it, so it starts the download. Open it up. And now Zoe can put these in order. Now let's say I need to go in and set up her access method. Right here in the menu, I select settings, and this is where I go to change those access methods. I can click on any of these and I see all of the different settings that I can come in and customize for her. I can also click on text to speech and I can explore different voices. If you click on edit, you'll see lots and lots of different voices that are available. You can filter by age and sex and language. You can go in, we've got 31 pages you can explore. And you can change the rate of speech, and you can just really go in there and add in some highlighting, different kinds of things to set them up for success. I'm going to return to the activity, and when I click on stop activity, the last thing I want to show you, in addition to all these things that are assigned to Zoe, we click on Activity Center. Here we have those access games like whack-a-mole, memory. We have emergent games, popping bubble wrap, simple puzzles, exploration. Again, really good for some of our learners who maybe need brain breaks occasionally, or we're practicing learning those access methods. I also really love giving accessible spinners and dice so our learners can get engaged in gameplay and different things like that. And there's that accessible calculator that we saw Sarah using at the beginning of the session. Lots of cool stuff there in the Student Center. So hopefully seeing those three things and the way that we made the activity in the editor, assigned it from the website, and played it in the Student Center, kind of help you see how these three components work together. This is just a little recap showing you what you can do on each of those three components. And what I'm going to do now is stop talking and see if there are any questions from all of you. I've talked about how those three components of Boardmaker can support lots of students, and hopefully you all got some ideas and some new ways that maybe it can support some of the kiddos that you're working with. But we are happy to answer any questions that you might have now. And then after we answer your questions, I'm going to give you all some resources to kind of help as you explore and grow.
So Mike has his hand raised. Mike, do you want to unmute? Did you have a question?
Back in the day when this company was new, they would mail things and we needed to cut out everything that I needed. I still have the huge program somewhere. Do you still have the program for families who don't have a computer?
That's a really good question, Mike. We still have some of the older software, but I don't know that we have things that are already pre-made to send to families. Allie, you might be able to answer that question a little bit better. It's not something that I'm aware of.
Mike, at this time, we don't have printed materials ready to mail. It's been something that we've talked about in the past, but the capacity for it just, it comes down to be really transparent. It just seems to be like logistical to store and mail those things out. But if you ever see, if you see a need for something like that, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're certainly always looking for ways to support various folks in the community. So you're more than welcome to reach out. I'll throw my email in the chat. And if you want to send something to me, I'll certainly filter. I'll run it up the flagpole.
In BookBridge, do you have chapter books?
So BookBridge has a few chapter books. I can go back to that slide and show you which books are included. There we go. So these are the books that are included with BookBridge currently. So some of them are chapter books. And Anne-Marie, I see your question about when I changed access methods in the voice. No, once you do those settings for that student, it automatically puts that access method and that voice in place for them no matter what activity they utilize. So it's that's the settings for that kiddo. So they'll always be there waiting for them. You're welcome.
Ashlyn, did you see the question about how the subscription works? So do students need a subscription or are they linked to the teacher's subscription?
Thank you. I was trying to read through those questions and I missed that one. Yes, so the students are linked through their instructor's account. So if the instructor has a subscription that a district account, they would have certain number of students available and they would be able to set their accounts up and assign those activities to them. So the students don't have to have any kind of subscription. And I can, what I'm gonna do is put a slide up that has, actually, I'm just gonna show you guys our Learning Hub. And I'll make sure, and Allie can put the link in the chat. We have this free on-demand Learning Hub. It's learn.tobydynavox.com. And when you first get to it, it'll prompt you to log in, create a username and password. If you have a Boardmaker account, just use the same login. And if you click over here on Boardmaker, you can explore all those AAC options. The world is your oyster. But if you're looking for some Boardmaker supports, we have lots of courses here. Some offer ASHA CEUs. But if you scroll down, we have, keep scrolling, documents that walk you through step by step how to do the different actions. We also have video clips. So short little 3 to 5 minute micro videos that show you how to do different things. So if you're looking for more information about activities to go, you can come here, click on that video, and it shows you how to go in there and find those things and edit them. If you're looking for videos on, okay, I always used Boardmaker 6, I'm trying to transition to 7, you can see these side-by-side videos. This is how you did it in 6, this is how you can do it in 7. But we also have some quick guides and things that just kind of walk you through all of the different things that you might want to learn how to do. And some of those include creating those student accounts and getting them set up and getting them access to the Student Center. So I highly encourage you to check out the hub because there's tons of stuff there. Did I miss any other questions? So Diana, that's a good question. You can use the Student Center for free. You don't have to have an account. But if you want to assign things to students so that you can push your activities to them and then see how they're doing, you would need a subscription for that. But anyone can download the app and have access to those whack-a-mole games and the dice and spinner and those kinds of things without a subscription. You're welcome. Any other questions? I know I threw a lot at y'all in a short amount of time, but I have all the faith that y'all can handle it. And I apologize, my dog has been a little bit more vocal today than usual. It's about to storm here, so I think he's a little anxious. So I apologize for any dog noises that you all got to listen to.
Thank you, ladies. This was phenomenal. I always learn something when I listen to anything on Boardmaker, because I feel like you're constantly adding new things, and there's just tons that I think we don't even utilize well. And just because there's so much.
There is a lot. And that's why we really want to encourage you all, like, just reach out with any questions, because we know there are lots of pieces and it's sometimes hard to wrap your mind around all of it. And we want to make sure that you find what you're looking for, and we want to support you in supporting the kiddos that you're out there working with, because we think y'all are awesome and we want to help y'all keep doing awesome work. So let us know if you need anything.
We have one last question. Somebody asked that does each user get a certain number of students for Student Center, so that if they're in different schools or a therapist that travels between multiple buildings, it's not a building specific license? Is it a license like per individual?
It's per individual, and you can reach out to your account manager with Boardmaker to really kind of determine how many accounts you get. I think Allie just posted something in there. It's generally about 10 student accounts. But if you, let's say Allie and I are both working at a school or traveling to different schools, she has 10 accounts, 10 students, I have 10 students, but we see some of the same kiddos. So Johnny isn't going to take up one of Allie's and one of mine. We can both work on Johnny's account with only having to create one. So you kind of have 20 kids in that sense, if that makes sense. Awesome. Great question, Brenda. All right, so I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer because I'm excited to see Sharon's presentation. And if you think of any other questions, please utilize chat. Let us know what else we can answer for you guys. And thank y'all so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you again, Ashlyn and Allie. And then you just wanted to stop share, I will quick screen share Sharon, and then I'll let you do it, because I just want to make sure I give you a proper introduction. So let me move things around here. Just wanted to go back. I know we've had some new people that have joined us. Sharon, Mike, Hipple, Kelsey, and I were the people that sort of brainstormed the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Regional Network. Unfortunately, Sharon has now left us in Wisconsin, and I'll show you in a minute where she went to. But the mission has always been to provide a platform where AT and AAC specialists around the state of Wisconsin are able to meet in regional groups to provide each other support, share knowledge, and raise awareness around current issues facing school-based AT and AAC professionals. And our vision was really to foster a grassroots effort to fill the gap left behind by the defunding of WATRN, to bring Wisconsin back to a place where AT and AAC professionals are created, developed, and supported in order to provide a high quality of assistive technology and AAC services to all students with disabilities. So we are completely volunteer run. We all volunteer our time. We try to bring in a vendor each meeting quarterly, just to expose everybody to all the different products that are out there. So this year, our focus has really been on that learning support software. So last meeting we had lesson picks. This meeting we have board maker, and hopefully for our summer meeting, we will have symbol sticks, so we can kind of see the variety that's out there, which has been really nice. The objectives today are to discuss supports for students with significant disabilities, learn about instructional strategies that one teacher, Sharon Redmond, is using with her class this year, reflect on what we're currently doing and ways to improve, and to explore and share as a learning community. So please, we benefit from everybody's knowledge. Share links, share ideas in the chat. Feel free to unmute and share your experiences as well. We're really a professional learning network, and we benefit from learning from everybody. I just sort of facilitate the meeting. Oh, it says winter. That should say spring. Spring Regional Network meeting agenda. We had Toby Dynavox and Boardmaker present, and now I will, and thank you to Ashlyn for doing that. I will throw it out to Sharon. As I said before, Sharon is an educator. She used to be a former Wisconsinite. I lifted this picture from her Facebook page because I think it's beautiful. She lives, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I say this incorrectly, Sharon, in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State.
Correct. Yes, the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State. Yes, and that's out my back door.
Yes, she lives right on the water, and she posts these wonderful, beautiful pictures. And so I don't think she'll ever move back to Wisconsin, but I think she still has family she visits, and she still shares her talents with us and helps out with WATRN. So thank you, Sharon, for agreeing to share with us your experiences this school year and what you've been doing in your classroom. And the link to Sharon's presentation is there along with the QR code. So I will stop sharing, Sharon, and then you can share.
All right. Well, that view, I can't wait to get back to that. So yeah, so thanks, Jennifer. Really appreciate that and inviting me to come in and spend some time with y'all this afternoon. And yes, I did defect, but I am still Wisconsinite at heart, and you'll still hear it in my voice. So everybody teases me out here in Washington. So, all right, so we're gonna get to it. And I just really, I learned so much just right now. I'm gonna just get my sharing of my screen here. Today, and that was really great, Ashlyn. I really, really appreciate that. When I started this journey in BookBrit, started this journey in comprehensive literacy instruction. Hang on, just get the video panel up and do that. Yeah. So when I started that, I really wasn't sure really where to start. And Boardmaker had been something that I was familiar with. And Kelly Fonner, maybe it's just the two of us. I saw your comment on the comment section, in the chat section, that talked about the 3-ring binders, and that was definitely my first experience, like sneaking into my SLP's office and looking up on this shelf and dusting these things off, going, I wonder what this Boardmaker thing is, and open it up. And I thought the light, just funneled down, like, here I have pictures. I don't have to cut stuff out of magazines to make some AAC supports for my students. Like, that was amazing to me. So yeah, back in the day. And then, man, when I got an Apple IIe computer as well in my classroom, and having those floppy disks. So I know we're dating each other, but we're kind of running in those same time frames. So so going from there, I immediately oh, Mike, did you want to say something? What's up?
My. Then. I. time. T. O. O. That was my time too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that while I was writing down that comment, Mike, and when I saw Kelly's little chat, her post in the chat, and I was thinking, you would have been about the age that would have been in my first class that I would have taught, if you'd have been in like my first preschool class that I taught way back in the, early 90s. So yeah, you would have been exposed to quite a bit of that, I'm sure, that your teachers had the similar experiences. So anyway, going through this, and I really wanted to participate in this book study, this comprehensive literacy thing that was coming out, and really wanted to kind of have an understanding and a grasp. And so I wasn't sure how to go from that print experience in the book study into implementation. And so Boardmaker was really my first go-to. And we'll talk about how, as we go through this, how my journey has morphed into that and what we're doing now. So let's see here. I'm going to see if I'm always trying to figure out where to put this little bar on the bottom, which one is the best place. So let's see, you guys can see the most. So I moved here to Washington State about 3 years ago from Wisconsin. I was teaching in a small district outside of Madison. So my background really is in as a special education teacher. I've been doing that for over 20 years. And I'm also an assistive technology specialist as well and have my ATP. So going into this journey and where I'm at right now, I am teaching we call it the SAIL program. I've called it that. It stands for Supporting Academics Through Inclusionary Learning. And so what that class is, though, is typically what has been in this district, in the Port Townsend School District in Port Townsend, Washington, is a makeup of students that are pretty impacted, most impacted by their disabilities. So those kiddos with low incident rate disabilities. So I have a student with Rett syndrome. I have students with autism that are barely impacted, extremely impacted by their autism, that are nonverbal, unintelligible, limited speech, limited sign. I have kids with rare medical conditions. I have students with cerebral palsy, and and I teach kindergarten through 5th grade because we're a pretty small district and out here on the peninsula. So it's kind of the makeup of my classroom. I needed to find something really when I took over this position this year, at the beginning of this year. I wasn't really happy with the curriculum that I was seeing and the implementation of that. So we used the teacher before me used the unique curriculum. We gave that a go. They had done it in print form. That didn't really seem to work, especially during the year of COVID. So I really wanted to find something that made sense. And then I started this journey of doing, of reading this book, Comprehensive Literacy for All. And if you can see this, I don't know if my picture is up, but if you can see it, I mean, I have tons and tons of tabs that I've just devoured the book. Like I said, I really wanted to be part of a book study, but I couldn't get there. And so I have, on the next slide, you'll see I have some access to some book studies. So if you are also interested in that, you can do some webinars that have been pre-recorded that we've had done here in our state of Washington. So, my goals this year were, one, to stay afloat with all the pivoting. We are on our 5th pivot. I have been teaching in person learning since the beginning of September. So I've been very fortunate. We've had a few shutdowns, but my students at times have been the only students on campus. And so I have been in person pretty much I've had them at least half time and at most of the time 4 days a week. So it's been a pretty good year, at least for access to my students in an in-person capacity, but we also provided that virtual as well. We were looking at a bunch of different curriculums that I should have fixed that. So I call it the comprehensive literacy instruction. We also looked at EdMark. I really wanted some goals to be looking at teaching my staff, which I have a staff of 8 right now, alternative pencil and using the keyboard, really diving into that emergent writing. Math has, personally always been a struggle for myself. So getting a good math curriculum that was really rooted in some AAC was important to me. And I think we are piloting the Equals program right now. And then looking at these AAC systems, I have at least 4 systems in my classroom right now. We have Pod, LAMP, oh boy, Snap Plus Core, and we also have, I'm always forgetting the last one. I'll remember it. So, and that training of aided language stimulation, if you've ever seen any of my presentations, that's a really, really key feature in being able to have students learning their language system of AAC. So that was really important to me as well. And then making sure that we had that access to all of our curriculum and assistive technology. Very important. So I had a lot of goals this year in the year of COVID, and we're doing pretty good. We've had to give ourselves a little pat on the back here and there, and we've also had to kind of maybe scale back on a few things, but we're doing pretty well. So, all right. So here we go. This is where I was talking about SETC is a special education tech center here in Washington State. And I did have it open right here that you can see. So it's already going to go here. So they've done all 12 chapters in the comprehensive literacy instruction for all. And so it's really, if you would like to be part of that, that would be great. So you just go on to the SETC site and you can be part of these books, this book study. What was nice about this in the recording modules is that I was able to, my phone is dinging, so I'm just trying to figure out what's happening here. Okay, all right, everything's okay. Sorry about that. So recorded books was really, really great for me because then I could do that on my time, and I wasn't able to make it during these book study. I know that there's some book studies going on in Wisconsin as well, but this is just a resource for you. Okay. So when we started out, our takeaway really kind of thinking about this is that we can believe and we can do hard things, right? We can make this stuff happen. So we really focused on 3 areas. That was my whole goal, was to focus on these. If I could get 3 components in the year of COVID, I felt like I was going to be doing really well. So this was our initial start, that alphabetic knowledge and phonological awareness. There was a couple points. I've taught this for a long time. What was nice, and you'll hear this a lot, is that it really kind of structured things for me and kind of brought all the pieces together. And it felt like I had the pieces, but I didn't feel like they were very cohesive. And so this book really gave me that outline and that piece to make all those parts and pieces come together. So and we'll go over some of these takeaways. Emergent reading, I really wanted to make sure that I included that AAC in that shared reading, that we looked at vocabulary, that we worked on comprehension, and looking at what that car and the crowd, and we'll go over that in just a little bit. Looking at that is just was really important for me to have those pieces as visual supports for myself. So emergent writing, super excited about this. I love predictable chart writing. It is my favorite thing to do. I would do it exclusively, if that's all I had to do, if I could just be a writing teacher right now, it's been so fun for me to be able to participate in and to work with kids. So we really wanted to make sure that we honed our skills. I honed my skills in that predictable chart writing. We were using alternative pencils, and we were also using their keyboard, and really looking at that idea of what makes a writer and the things that we need to make a writer. So we did do hard things. I started with 3. We ended up doing all 6 areas. I was really proud about that. And so I'm going to be showing you guys a little bit of what that actually looked like in practice. So really reading this, highlighting all the bits, taking notes, and then how did I really implement that? So we got word work, we did self-directed reading, we're doing comprehension, especially as my journey progressed. You know, now we're utilizing Readtopia and what that has done and has changed, and how then I also incorporate a lot of the Boardmaker things in to support that Readtopia piece. You know, AAC emergent writing, predictable chart writing, shared reading, and then AAC and phonics and what that looks like. So, all right, so I did have, and I will go and put that link. I'm just going to go back. Oops. Let me go back here. This link should be a hot link. I have a lesson plan that I'll show you in order to keep everything straight for me, because I didn't have a curriculum at the time that I really needed to do that. And I created my own lesson plan template to kind of keep it all straight. And I'll make sure that gets in there and share that with you. So to go through here. So, okay, so we have alphabet knowledge and phonological awareness. This is where we started, and we went through all 7 steps. You know, I had it here in this book. What I quickly realized is that we needed some visual supports for ourselves, and so I have it open right here. It's going to force you guys to make a copy of the document, and that you're all welcome to this, and then you can make, yeah, so you can make your copies. So I created this. I put in some visual supports. Our paraeducators and everyone that walks into this room can pick this up. And if I say, hey, go work on explicit, you know, alphabetical knowledge and phonological awareness, they know exactly what that looks like. So we've really practiced this. This one has been the piece that has been the hardest. So let's practice naming this letter. You say it to yourself and I'll say it out loud. That one was really important for us. The other key difference that what you noticed also was represents the sound, that this letter represents the sound, and changing that in our room from what does the letter say, what is this letter name, to really that this letter's name is, so this letter A represents the sound ah. So having that, and we really wanted to go for fidelity on this and make sure that we were bringing that in, and we were all speaking the same language. So I have 10 students that are on my caseload that come to my classroom, and I have 8 paras right now. So making sure that everybody in managing all of that is on the same page is really important. Okay, so let's look at some pictures. So we use our talkers. I love this, Kelly. I was thinking about you when I put this in, when you and I, we had presented about you utilizing AAC and aided language, that you need to have symbols to be a symbol talker. Well, you need to have access to letters to work with letters. You can't be a speller if you don't have access to letters. So we make sure that we have as many tools as possible. We have our spelling board on our talkers out. You have a robust communication system. It's there. Find that, bring that out. Students need access to letters in order to form that alphabet knowledge and phonological awareness, in order to spell, in order to do any of those practices. And actually, I was just reading this, if you can see this, it's called What is the Science of Reading? And it's talking about aligning and moving away from like balanced literacy approach, which our school is doing, to more of a structured reading approach. And one of the things that I noticed in here, which I thought was really awesome, and I will put this into the slide because I just read it before our meeting, was that, so if a child memorizes 10 words, then the child can read 10 words. But if a child can learn the sounds of 10 letters, then the child can read 353 sound words, over 4,000 four-sound words, and over 21,000 five-sound words. That's only knowing 10 sounds. That's incredible. That's incredible. And so when we talk about reading and we talk learning how to read and learning how to write as an individual that has significant and complex bodies and communication systems, it's really important to make sure that we are still providing solid research-based methodology when we go about creating our lessons. And it's really important. And I understand, and I have been a person that has also in this journey through AAC done quite a few different things. And so and we'll kind of talk about, I think it's in my next slide, of moving into this emergent reading, and is this idea of symbolate text. And I just kind of wanted to touch on this. And just so you know, I'm unable to right now as I'm presenting see the chat. So Jennifer, if there's someone that really wants, if we want to jump in and have this discussion, I'm happy to do that, or we can also save it to the end if you think that's appropriate. So I'll just make you take charge of that. So if you've been online and you've seen any of some of the heated things going around on the idea of symbolate text, you know that this is a pretty big deal in the AAC field right now. And where I wanted to share, and boy, it's so muddy, right? Because you have communication, writing, and reading, and they are all tangled. And it is really hard to pull them apart. But there are times when we really need to think about them in untangling it just a little bit. And this is one of those moments in doing that symbolate text. And I have to say, when I first read this, I was like, what? I have been creating symbolate text for my AAC users and my students since that became available. And what it was awesome, and I really loved seeing today, is that the things that Ashlyn presented, you didn't see any of that, right? Because when we know better, now we're doing better. And what we know, and I just really, this is just so important. I want to read this from Karen Erickson, David Copenhaver's book. And it really, we find that other literacies distract us from assisting children with significant disabilities to read and write. Even though it was common practice to symbolate text, that's not where we need to be. So we think, and research supports the idea, symbols are wonderful, supportive, in face-to-face communication. But if you want to teach children to read and write, then you must use traditional orthography. I knew I was going to say that word. You have to use that traditional orthography. You have to have access to letters to be a writer, to be a reader. Same as you have to have access to symbols if you are an AAC user, to be a symbol user and communicate with symbols. So it really, when I kind of read that and thought through this and then went through this journey in teaching my students, it really became clear. And so I hope that this muddy, tangled stuff kind of sifts itself out for you as we kind of go through this and as I share some of our stuff. Emergent reader, of course, using Tar Heel Reader. We heard that from Ashlyn. When I started this journey, I was really using a lot of the materials from Boardmaker. And so these will take you to, and I love this, that they also have this shared teacher portal that really gives some, and of course my internet is pretty slow right now. So take a look at that. I'm just going to go back. Hopefully it will load up. I didn't think it would be that slow. So sorry about that. Oops. So this CAR process in emergent reading, this comment, ask, respond, in the crowd, completion, recall, open, WH distance, I really felt that this was important as well to have access to as we're going through these. I think that a lot of these things that you'll see, and let me get to it. Let me here. So I made these documents that you guys have access to. And it really puts the idea of what this is. And as we've taught reading and as we have worked with students, this comes natural with our own children. You know, we leave with a comment, oh, look, I see I see an elephant, and then we stop and wait. We give that expectant pause to say, hey, here's an opportunity for you to comment, right? And then maybe we ask that question, have you seen elephants before? And then wait and expect that pause and then respond by adding more. What I found in teaching this with my students is that I really needed to kind of help them, teach them how to make a comment, how to ask a question, and how to then respond. And using me as a cue that when I lead with a comment, that you can comment too. And that process for our students with significant disabilities and even cognitive disabilities, complex bodies, complex communicators, I had to explicitly teach. I couldn't rely on just having that there and them getting that. It just didn't work. So you may find that as well in going through this CAR process, that you may have to spend a little bit more time on the front end, explicitly teaching children what that means, modeling what that means to make a comment. I use a lot of exaggeration when I'm teaching and I lead with a comment or ask a question. I wonder why, using multimodality modes of communication, using sign, using picture symbols, using all of the tools that I have to sit there and assist that student in understanding what it means to ask a question, what it means to make a comment, and then how can you respond more. And so it was a really, really important thing for me to see. Like I knew these things and I think I was teaching these things, but it really, again, it just brought it into a nice, concise process that I could follow. Still working on going with the crowd response. I think this is what we do. We have these up in our classrooms. All my teachers have a reading book that they have that has all of these in for them so that they can refer to them at any time, whether it's going to be during explicit teaching or embedded opportunities throughout the day. And so utilizing these tools and having small visual supports for ourselves really helped us get pretty quick with this process. Okay, so
Hey Sharon, can I just ask you something quick? So you talk about how all your teachers and staff are using those. What did that training look like for the staff in order to get everybody on the same page?
So what we were really blessed with COVID was my students, and no students attended any in-person learning on Wednesdays, which gave me time with my whole staff. That was just a complete blessing that we took total charge of. And so we would go through each of these steps. We started with the explicit. We started, like I said, with the phonological and explicit alphabetic knowledge and this routine. We practiced with each other. I modeled what this looked like in real time, in person, and then I would do that explicit teaching. This is what I'm doing. I'm doing step one. All right, everyone, we're going to do it now. I'd like you to take your student and you do that with them. And let's look at that and talk about that and how that felt next time we meet. We took video of each other to really assess what that looked like. They videotaped me more, and so we could look at my mistakes more, which I was completely comfortable with, and so then we could learn from that. And so we had that opportunity to be together, and that was really helpful. If I didn't have that opportunity, what I would do and what I have done in the past and what I continue to do now is I have a Google Classroom that's specifically for all of my paraeducators, and all of this information goes in there. I go and I take video of myself doing it and how to do it, and then I post that. onto our Google Classroom. I also go and find YouTube videos of other people doing it that I feel are good and solid representations of what I'm looking for. Sometimes I find a video that is not, and I say, here's what not to do. Here's how we would have fixed that, you know. That way, if their student is missing for that day, doctor's appointments, my kids are pretty medically fragile, so that tends to happen, then they have a website that they can go to, and they can do that PD without me. And so we kind of have, this year we were able to do it in person, but then I have it set up for when we can't do that, when we're too busy on Wednesdays, like we are right now, our fifth pivot. So yeah, great question though. Any others? Okay. All right, so we're going to keep going on because you guys want to see like some really, really awesome pictures and some videos that I have for you. And how are we doing on time? Doing okay. All right, Poppleton and Winter, I thank you, Ashlyn, for showing really the structure that you would find inside those that book bridge. And that's where we went. It was November. We were pivoting for the first time. Where the school shut down, except for my students. We were the only students in school. So we went from doing inclusion to completely self-contained, just by the nature that there weren't any other students in the whole building, essentially. So a few kids came in, but we couldn't mix cohorts and all the rules that we were going through in November. So this felt like a really good opportunity for me to practice some of these skills that I was learning in the early days of my my tabbing of this book in comprehensive literacy instruction. And so we really utilized everything that we could. So the other piece that we did is we did have access to our art teacher and the art room. And so we went all in, and we made, also we're always looking at following directions. We're looking at how students can be independent. So if I give them their materials and directions, that they can follow that and be independent without prompting and support, because we're always going towards independence as much as possible. So we utilize Boardmaker for that as well, these directions and checking them off that things are done. So we made these materials to go along with these stories, this Poppleton in Winter. We used the middle one, the modified, I think it was called, I'm not sure, Ashley, maybe you can tell me the 3 levels. I'm spacing that right now, but that's the one we went with. So this was chapter 1, Poppleton in Winter, and we would start out with those, and I was hoping I don't have it open. We would start out with starting with the vocabulary, reading the book, doing all of the pieces that lesson plan, that quick lesson plan shows. And I thought maybe I do have, I don't think that if I go to it now that you would be able to see it. So I'll bring that up at the end. So we would start there, go through this, and then we would immerse ourselves in this. So in chapter 1 is icicles. And so we really wanted to make sure that that then we really worked with icicles, right? And that we were painting with ice. And so this is my friend Lisa and my friend Steffi, and we were in the art room, and we got I think the art teacher thought I was crazy that we were going to paint with ice, and that this watercolor, and that I was going to make these beautiful pictures. And this ended up actually being some amazing art that we sent as gifts for our parents, and also used it as wrapping paper. We also did a lot of writing. So we would have these directions, and what you see in the middle picture then is the last of these directions. But then what they would do is we would write about it. So we would write about what we just did. We would write about our experience in ice and our experience in trying to put those gloves on our hands and trying to keep them on. And it was cold, and what that felt like, and what it looked like. And we use the alternative pencil, as you can see there. And I have another example here. We make ours so that it sits on the board. On the back, we can choose our pencil, the color that we want. We have all the language that we need right here. We do an QWERTY keyboard because most of my students have an AAC device, and the QWERTY keyboard is the one that's most accessible, or that is programmed into there. So we really want to model that for them, so that they can come and when they see that, it is not something that is a new feature for them. So really fun activities. That was chapter 1. Chapter 2, we were making some, boy, I don't have my video isn't attached to this. I'm gonna have to go and find that. So we did, it was called the bust in chapter 2. And so we went in and we molded and played with clay. We created cinnamon and played with cinnamon Play-Doh and really talked about the smells, and we wrote about this and what we did. And then we actually had clay that we then fired in a kiln and had created, because at the end, them, where we can make comments, where we are modeling that language as they're going about it, which was really important. So then we, at the end, chapter 3 is a sleigh ride. And so then we did a reader's theater in a very modified way. So the reader's theater is here for you to access. And let's see. Oh, and then I won't even give myself access. Of course not. I will change that. So that we had this reader's theater, and I modified it so that, and we practiced for weeks on our talkers, creating the language that we needed and looking at building of that communication, and how we would use that in that oral language, in that face-to-face communication, and using our symbols, and how that is different than in the writing that we did, and just explicitly talking about that. So here's a little video.
Welcome to our play. This is our 3rd chapter in our story, Poppleton in Winter. Our characters are Leilani as and Eli as Hudson. Good job. Here we go. It was a very snowy day, and Poppleton felt like a sleigh ride. He called his friend Cherry Sue. Would you like to go on a sleigh ride, Cherry Sue? Cherry Sue said,
sorry, I'm making cookies.
Oh, that made Poppleton so sad. So he called his friend Hudson. Hudson, would you like to go for a sleigh ride? And Hudson said,
sorry, I'm making a cake.
Oh, that made him so sad because his friends were so busy. He was so disappointed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. There was a knock on the door. Help me. And his friends were there and said,
So that was Eli. He has some speech, a couple words that he's able to say, and he was super excited. My little friend Leilani has a pretty significant delay, and so for her, this was a lot more challenging for her. What you saw was the end result of weeks of work of going through, looking at this language, finding those symbols, modeling this language, modeling with, playing with our puppets that we made, and playing with the backgrounds that we made, and how we could do that, how we could, how we could get ready for this little theater. It was hard because I had to have kids in cohorts, which I still do. And so I had one class doing one chapter, another class doing another chapter, and the third class doing a third chapter of groups of kids that are that were grouped together in their gen ed classrooms. So this was just one of them that you saw. Again, we did a lot of painting, a lot of work, talked about all of this, always with AAC and our communication in mind, and looking at then the reading and what that looked like, and the writing and building those readers and writers through
So
that.
Sharon, it sounds like you did this over the course. Was it like a month? Like how long did it take you to do Poppleton and go through the different chapters, or was it like a week a chapter, or what did that time frame look like?
Sure. So, what I wanted was for it to be, because when we came back from November, we had 3 weeks. My goal was for us to be able to be done and do a chapter a week. What we found is that we, especially doing the play and doing that readers theater, that was so rich and they were so excited for it. We needed to extend that. And so we really did the first 3 chapters, one a week. But then we came back after winter break and we reviewed that again for another 3 weeks and went over it slowly. So we went through each chapter again, went through those board maker activities that are listed on there. We did some reteaching of that where we felt that we went too fast. Redid some reteaching of that vocabulary, really brought in that phonological awareness piece, bringing in sounds and letters that we were focusing on in that story. And so we made extension activities. So I extended it for another 3 weeks, which let us then get ready for, which I thought was a really important piece, that readers theater, and that we could use that communication. So we could really see the difference between communicating with symbols and communication different from writing, which we use letters and words to do, different from reading, where we're learning our letter sounds, how to blend, and start that word work activity in there, which was probably about, we got done end of January. So yeah, but good question. And I think it really depends on on your learners. We just felt that it was so successful and it was so powerful that we wanted to extend that. This was kind of our last day before winter break. Everybody in the school was crying because there were no kids in school, and everybody's like, where's all the singing? Where are all the kids? Where's all the joy? And our kids were the only ones really in the building. And so we went around to all the teachers that were doing their virtual lessons, and then we sang to them. So, which was a really, really nice piece. And did our sleigh ride, which was the end of a Poppleton in winter. And so we had our little reindeer on the side on their little bikes. And then we had cohorts of kids. We had one cohort pushing the sleigh, which had all of the things that we had made, which is over on the right hand of your screen. And then the kids that were in a different cohort were then separated down on the ground. So trying to do our best. Super engaging, really exciting for us as we're going through our journey through this comprehensive literacy instruction, and also for our students. So we felt like it was a really successful time. I'm super excited to teaching summer school or ESY this summer, as to when I saw some of the things that Ashlyn brought in, and I'm like, oh, that would work so well for our ESY program that we'll be doing over the summer. So I'm very excited for that. So any other questions about those 2 pieces? Okay, well, if you do, that's fine. We can, keep them in your head. Don't lose them, and we will write them out, and we can address that when we get to the end. So one of my favorite things, and I just love this, I've always been a little afraid about teaching writing, I have to admit. And when COVID first started, I called, texted Kate Ahern and I said, hey, can I come into one of your sessions that you're teaching writing and really kind of see what you're doing? Because I'm just so fearful that I am not tackling this the way I'm supposed to be, that I'm not going to go into this in the right way. And which was wonderful to see other educators teaching and what that looked like. Even though it was in the virtual setting, I could still see and pulled out pieces of what that meant to model writing, what that meant to think about and have oral communication with symbols versus written instruction with letters and words. And I don't think I realized, couldn't separate it out at the time like that, but now I can, now that I've been through this journey a little bit more and really have dove into this work, that can really see that separation and how it makes sense and why we need to do that. So this predictable chart writing, oh yeah, all right, make a copy. So while that's loading, hopefully that'll load really quickly. Of course, I wanted to make it access easier for you guys to be able to have all of these resources, because unless you have like a curriculum like Readtopia, you don't have any of these. And I just felt like I've already made them. So if you guys want to use them, please go ahead. So this predictable chart writing, we write the chart, we brainstorm together with this topic. We did this with every single part of Poppleton in Winter, where we would brainstorm, and you'll hopefully I have that video. If not, I'll pull it up another way. Brainstorming, really looking at how we use, again, our symbols to communicate face to face, right? And then taking those ideas and putting them into print and what that looked like, and how then we then use reading, right? And I talked about that earlier, how reading, writing, talking, it is all this jumbled piece, and just kind of just pulling those fibers apart a little bit. You can see it, like I can really see it during this time. So here's the part where then we reread. So we're building it, we're putting in the reading into this before we're even diving into the writing. Working with sentence strips. You'll see a little clip today about that. This one always kind of tripped me up, be the sentence. It's been a little hard for us to do this, where they're cutting out these words and they're building the sentence up at the front of the room. Well, some of my classes, because of cohorting, I only have one kiddo. So it's been a little bit more challenging, all of us being a different word in our sentence strip, but we've been making it work. So and then making and publishing a book, which has been so much fun. We published our first book in Tar Heel Reader. I have a student who is pretty impacted by her autism, and it was becoming very obsessive with some of like getting a keyboard. She would only do the lower right-hand part of her keyboard. And so it was this repetitive over and over. The minute we took all of this work that we were doing, and the writing on the wall, and the predictable chart writing, and the cutting of the part sentences and putting them back together, and then brought it into Tar Heel Reader, where then she could find the picture and then she could type those sentences. It just opened everything up for her. She was so excited that we busted through some of her really, really sticky widgets, pieces of her autism, and she was typing, and it was phenomenal. It was just a really, really powerful moment that Tar Heel Reader gave us, gave her being able to do that and really show what she knows. And she's a phenomenal typer. So we knew we just needed to break through that autism shell that was really kind of getting in her way of becoming an author. So all right, so here we go. Let's go back. I'm really excited, and it is absolutely my favorite. I really, really, really think about this. And Mike, man, I really want to have a conversation with you, because I know that your instruction, because of what we knew back in the day when you were learning to read and write, was just way different. And now that we know better, we do better, right? And just the idea of separating this out and writing and using that keyboard, right? Using that alternative pencil for writing, that we can't be a writer without those things, right? So, oh darn, it's not here. I don't know what happened. I must be on an old version of my or it didn't update or something. So I might just stop and try to see if I can figure that out, because I really want to show you this emergent predictable chart writing. And I think if I refresh my presentation, that will happen. I think that might be what's happening here. So let's talk about emergent writing first. So this a predictable chart writing, that we do that, write the chart. And you'll see that right here, we are writing the chart, I can help. This is an example that we're using in Readtopia right now, or Dr. Doolittle goes and helps. And so now how can I help? And so we are writing through this, and we are going through, we did some categorization of people and our pets, and then separated from things that we do. So a lot of work that you can bring in there. We looked at spaces and what that looks like. We looked at letters that were important, that we were working on that day. We use this chart throughout so many lessons in bringing that back to our students. Here you can see that, we have our book that we have open, whether that was Poppleton, whether that was, this one is Dr. Doolittle, having that information here and having access to letters. And for Leilani, having access to her QWERTY keyboard on her talker was just really important. And then down here is process of, working with those sentence strips, allowing kids to make mistakes and cutting and finding where those spaces are, was just a really important process. So, all right.
Karen, I'm seeing the video on my
Yeah,
copy. So do you have captions on? Is that the black bar that's at the bottom?
it is.
If
Yeah.
you turn your captions on, I think it's right below your captions. If you turn them off.
All right. I want to hide subtitles. Let me move. It is there. See, on this one, I'm not seeing it. Let me just refresh. I know that just might be a bugger for everyone. So sorry about that. I just really want to make sure that you guys are able to see this and get down here this way. So my apologies as things load. All right, let's get here. Oop. Yeah, I am not seeing my video. Oh, that's because I have the wrong one.
I was just gonna say, you're not on the shared one that we all are on, so.
No, I'm on the wrong one. So one of the things I wanted to make sure is that, so I am on my school account. So that's the problem right here, is that I can only get to my Boardmaker through when I was logging in, because of course I can't remember my passwords. So I do that. So let me just pull that up. So I'm going to just stop share for a second. And maybe what we can do also is just, there are some questions. I'm happy to answer some questions while I go and get this. Has anybody tried any of these strategies and have ideas so that they have used?
I just want to say that it's just kind of coincidental, because just today I took I'm AT support with Jennifer here in Green Bay. And just today I showed a Project Core video on predictable chart writing. Just today with these 5 steps. So it's just kind of ironic.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yep. Okay. I'm here.
And I think, Sharon, like my biggest takeaway is how engaging you've made the learning. So I think by doing some of the art projects and doing the readers theater, you've just made students, want to participate because of the activities that you are using. And I think that's so important. I hear so often that, this student won't engage. But I think we really have to look at how we're teaching and making learning fun, making reading and writing fun for these students so that it is easy to participate, and they have opportunities to use their communication systems and their alternate pencils and all of that. So I love
Yeah,
how engaging you've made it.
Thanks. And I think one of the things too, sorry, I'm getting back on track. One of the things that I find, we communication is life, right? That it is live and active and messy, and it has to be engaging. It is not, all right, we're going to come in and we're going to start talking and we're going to use our AC and show me how you do this. And I said, I want cookie. All right, well, let's do that. You show me I want cookie. And then I'm going to get, we really need to, think about how we're teaching and feeling good about engaging in language and engaging with our learners and what that looks like. And it has to be exciting and it has to be engaging. And man, did we talk about those ice cubes, because they were cold and they were so cold and I was cold. And what was cold? Was my head cold? No, my fingers were cold. So really using and going into our talkers and finding that language where it made sense, was just, it takes a lot of time, and that's okay. So we need to spend that time right now. It's important to spend that time so that we can really engage in there. All that language and vocabulary that we did back in November, my kids still know right where it is. And when I say, hey, do you remember Poppleton and the icicles? And somebody's like, yeah, my fingers were. And then she goes into her talker, cold. And I'm like, you're right. They were cold. Ooh, so cold. And then her sister follows along with another comment. And that's just having a conversation on our way to PE, so it's just really, really engaging to have that and give them that interactive and immersive experience in everything we do. So yeah, so I want to show you a couple things. So this is a picture video of us. So she is working with sentences and putting them back together.
I can help Dr.
Well, this says, good job reading, but I'm going to read it. I can help Doolittle. Did we forget something?
Yeah.
What did we forget? If we put this, see? If we put this right here, ready? I
can help Dad.
Where is it? Uh-oh, but see, what did we forget? There we go.
That's another.
So, was doctor the most important word to put into that sentence? No, but what was important here is that she had, I'm gonna, hit percent. She had a model that she was looking at. She was able to use that. She had worked with it. She had seen it. She referred back to it. She referred back to writing, something that we had done together that she was engaged in and that she knew she could access. All of those pieces are really helpful. And going through each of these steps of working those sentences really is an important piece. And again, what this book did for me is it in my practice is it really, I had been doing bits and parts of this, but it put it together and it gave it a meaning, and it put it into a really nice format so that when I'm engaging learners that have complex bodies and have complex communication systems and have some cognitive disabilities, that we can take our time and we can go through this and we can go through these important pieces and refer back to our chart. Huge piece that we keep going back to our chart. That is our anchor chart. Gen Ed teachers have been doing this forever, anchor charts, and bringing that idea back into this comprehensive literacy instruction is really an important piece. So I wouldn't, at first I was like, oh, I should make this pretty and it should, you know, be on my interactive whiteboard and have all these pieces and be interactive. And I just put that all away and I said, no, we need to have charts on the wall, these charts, these visual representations of what we're doing. All right, I have one more video. Oh, this is really great.
Here we go.
I'm just gonna pause for a second. So this was way back in November and December. We were working with Poppleton and Winter. We were talking about, we were gonna be making this, actually this was October, end of October. We were making pumpkin pie in a cup and we were exploring this idea of predictable chart writing. And you'll kind of see now what my charts look like and what they first looked like. You know, there's a huge difference there. This is also an example of two sisters and both using two different communication devices and how we do this. There was a lot of pre-work before this, but I knew I couldn't show you all of that. So just know that this was there was some pre-work, and I'm gonna play this while I get and plug in my computer.
Lisa, do you know what word comes next?
So
What word comes next?
So we're gonna tell her what comes next. She wrote, no, thank you.
Oh, you know it's pudding.
We do I,
What
and then
word
what
comes
word comes
next?
Wand.
Nice try. I saw you going, but do it slower.
Let's do it.
So
Let's do it again. I, and then we're gonna do
Need.
need.
Need. You're right, Lisa. I need. I need. What did we need?
I need pudding.
Pudding. That's right. I almost forgot. I need pudding.
Okay,
Here we go.
let me sweep that.
I
Pause. So really working with them, we did that pre-work, we did the vocabulary work, we found things on our talker. What you'll see is there are two talkers there. I have my own that has lamp on it. And then there's, I always forget the name of that one. The one that Lisa has, and she has, and we have a modeling device there as well. And we did a lot of pre-work on what that looked like. So, and that we were talking, you know, and having that conversation. So her using symbols during that time was completely appropriate, right? Because we're communicating and we're having ideas and I'm asking her a question, that face-to-face communication. It changes then when I ask them to do writing, right? And I specifically will even say, when you're showing me writing on your talker, we need to put a period at the end because that's a sentence. And then that tells me that you did this in writing. And that was has been a really nice distinction for my students to really understand that.
Here we go.
Pause. Wow.
I think Mike has his hand raised and has a question.
Okay. Oh,
Let's read what we.
yeah, Mike.
Everything. I don't remember the name of the children's show, but it was on PBS Kids that teach everyone their letters and everything.
Well, I remember watching one called Between the Lions. Yeah, was that it? Yeah, okay. Yeah, my kids love that one too. And they're about, you're a little bit older than them, so they're just by a few years. So yeah, that would have been right around the same time. So yeah, they loved that show and really talked a lot about words and parts of speech and stories and understanding and making inferences and all of those pieces. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Mike. Okay, so one of the things I'm super excited about this, and I added this in last minute. I was listening to a podcast, Loma, and there's a link at the end of my slide show, and they have been in the 5th season and really diving into this idea of comprehensive literacy instruction for all. And really, and I was listening and I cannot remember the episode, and I tried to go find it and just couldn't find it, and who even the speaker was. So if someone remembers, maybe Kelly, maybe someone's out there that remembers who it was, let me, chime me in. So, but this idea of what makes a writer, and this really for me solidified that kind of soup that we were talking about, that sticky web of communication, writing and reading, and pulling that, just untangling that a little bit. And this really said it for me, right? You need letters to be a writer, you need letters to be a reader. And so what makes a writer? Well, having those letters, words, spaces, punctuation, ideas. And so I have this video, and I'll come back to it. I think I'm kind of running out of time. We have just 10 minutes later, so I'm not going to show you that. But just this idea really, like I said, it pulled it out for me of what that meant. And then we made this together as a team, as a group, as a class, and went through this idea of finding each of these. So where are letters on our talker? It's a keyboard, you're right, on your keyboard. Where are spaces? Where are punctuation? I have a 5th grader that I did this with and realized pretty quickly that he didn't know where these things were. I had made these assumptions that at his age that he had received this instruction, but we had to go back. We had to go back and find that alphabet board. We had to go back and learn where the space is in different areas, learn what those letters and letters make words, and what punctuation means, and what is a statement versus an exclamation versus a question, huh? What? So, and how different people use that. And some people write with pencils, some people type with a typewriter, or typewriter, I'm really dating myself, with a computer, with a keyboard. Some people use their talker and the keyboard on their talker. So just making that as typical as possible. Another really great area that I'm loving to do is this word work. This is really, really solidified for me by getting into Readtopia. They have some really nice resources that I've been utilizing. And here's some example of what we've been working on, the word work lessons, separating them out, them now they have 10 sounds. So we're going to start building stuff. We're going to go for it, right? I mean, I read that earlier, and they could build over 350 words. Oh my gosh, that could take us throughout the whole entire year, just 10 sounds. Now, we're not going to just rely on those 10 sounds. We're going to learn all of our sounds of the alphabet, but we can start now. We start right away, and then sorting and playing and manipulating and segmenting and blending and moving and manipulation, all of the things that their peers are doing, we're doing too. We're slowing it down. We're using different materials. We're bringing in their AAC devices. We're doing it with them and with materials that they're excited about. So really, really other things that we're working on too, like I realized my students didn't know where the beginning of the word was, the beginning letter. They didn't know what the middle letter was. They didn't know what the ending sound or ending letter. So we've taken a lot of time stretching out these lessons and working on some of those basic components. Comprehension also, really once again, we dove into that. We were always asking questions. What's been really nice and moving now into the Retopia is that we have these closed reading activities, which allow us, one of the things we realized very quickly is that our students, when they're out in the gen ed environment and the teacher tells, like some typical things like underline the words that begin with S. They didn't quite understand that underlining meant and what that looked like on their iPad and what they could use and how they could make that happen. And so really going back and making sure that we understood these directions of what underline means, what circle means, what an X means. And so in all of this, I think it's just important to remember some of those pieces that we're still working on, right? We're still working on those pieces. So self-directed reading, we're still under construction. We have, I still have 7 weeks left, so we're not done yet, but we have been so focused on so many other areas and we've been pivoting so many times that there have been other things. We work on this. I have a whole piece here for self-directed reading that it will open up. We've made this for you guys and made it for us, and happy to share it with everyone of what that looks like. So in my paras, we've explored this. We just haven't practiced this as a teaching, very significant teaching moment of looking at that independent or self-selected reading. So, but we're excited to be able to support our students in doing that. So we're doing it. We're just not following where we're right here. But that is our next piece of work. So much more to learn. This was the podcast that I was talking about that I'm super excited about. I haven't listened to this one with Dr. Caroline Musselwhite. I'm super excited to listen to that one. They're really focusing on season 5 about this comprehensive literacy instruction for all. So encourage you to check that out. I always love learning about new podcasts and being able to just listen to those when I'm taking my dog for a walk. So the only problem is I want to write down all of the things that I learn, and that's hard when I'm walking, but I just come back to them. So, yes, so that's it in a nutshell. Let me stop sharing. That'll take you to that. So any questions or anything that I can answer, or maybe you have a suggestion like, hey, Redmond, don't do it that way. Maybe you want to think about it this way, because I'm always up for that. So yeah, if you tried something that has really worked out for your learners, I'd love to have that discussion. So it's a huge passion of mine. I'm very excited about this, and I just appreciate everyone for sticking out and sticking through this time on Zoom and at the end of the school year, this crazy year, and just spending this time with me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was amazing. You are doing such great work. A couple questions. Amy just asked, what was the title of the article that you mentioned at the beginning, the one you said that you just read?
Sure. So the title of the article is "What is the Science of Reading?" And I can forward that on to Jennifer. And if you want to, or what I can do too is I can put a link. This was sent to me by one of my colleagues here at my school because we're moving into structured literacy and away from balanced literacy. So, or methodology, and balanced literacy has components of structured literacy. So I want to make that clear, but I'm moving away from that structure. But I'm happy to I'll make a note and I will link that into the slides. So I'll put that on the last slide as a link. So.
Sure. And I just want to, before, if anybody's getting ready to leave, if we do go over with questions, please leave if you need to, but make sure you click those 3 dots in the chat, because Kelly Vonner has been putting some fantastic links in the presentation. So you can save those links and definitely open them up and utilize them. There's a ton of great training that's already out there. Kelly linked in some of the AAC in the cloud stuff. Actually, the dynamic learning maps, or DLM, has a ton of training modules that like David Copenhaver has put together on writing that are really great.
The Tar Heel Reader also, I think that's at the end of the slide with the resources, also Tar Heel Reader shared readers, the PD modules, sorry. That is one of the things that I link for my paras. And then what's nice is that we talk about that. They go and watch those. They print out a certificate, and they have been plastering their workstation with all these certificates. Like, look what I did. And so it's been kind of a contest. So, which is really great. So yeah, definitely check those out. Thanks for these. It's also great.
And then Kelly LinkedIn, Linda Burkhart has some stuff on alternative pencils. And then the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, so where Karen Erickson does most of her work, the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies also has some modules and learning on alternative pencils from the work that Gretchen Hanser did. So there's just a ton out there. Like I said, make sure you click and save the chat because there's a ton out there. I think it's doing the work that Sharon's doing, pulling all those pieces together. And I think you just have to jump in like head first. You know, it may not look pretty, and it may, like Sharon said, she doesn't have like all the pieces there, but she's getting there, and you have to start from somewhere. So I think just getting in and getting that work started, it may not look pretty at first, but Sharon's charts have evolved. So.
They have evolved. They have color. They have color in more sections. Yeah.
Yeah. And
my main point, my one point I really wanted to make too is like where I love Don Johnson's Retopia. I'm a huge fan. We switched from Unique to that. But when I didn't have that curriculum and you have access to your Boardmaker materials, and that is awesome. And now just even being here, now I know that I can even blend more of these things. When I was looking through that list that Ashlyn was presenting, I'm like, oh my gosh, that goes to that book in Retopia. That will go to that book in Retopia. Oh my word, we could do this. So super exciting to have those materials. So yeah.
And I think what's great about, even utilizing Boardmaker and they have book templates in there. You could even create some of your books that you're writing, and then you can push them out in Student Center to the students, and they could practice that repeated reading. So they could log in at home, because you can give students or parents a QR code, and they just log into Student Center, and they could do it from home, and they could practice that repeated reading, and you could really make their personal bookshelf something that they could access all summer long. And so, when I think about my own kids and how many times I've read Pete the Cat and some of those stories, that repeated reading is so important. So there's lots of great tools, or utilizing Tar Heel Reader too. So there's just a lot, even putting books into Google Slides. You can create books with Google Slides and share those out with families so that they can read them. I think that's all, the technology has come so far, and we've come so far in learning that technology this year, and parents too. So I think that you can really utilize a lot of different tools when you're teaching literacy and incorporating families into those pieces, so they can practice some of those skills and be readers and writers at home too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really important. And it's frustrating when I come across, like I have a fifth grader, and I feel this urgency, to be able to make sure that they have all of these parts and pieces. And that's why, in the beginning, when I'm like, okay, I'm going to do 3 this year, and I'm like, wait a minute, they don't have time for me to figure out my stuff, like I need to have it now. Like, it may not look pretty and it's not going to look great, but I just need to start. So.
Will you share the new paper in the family group, please?
Oh, which one? This one? What is the science of reading? Yeah. Okay. Yep. I'll put it into my slide too, Mike, and make sure. But if there's another one, just send me a message if there was something different that it was not that, and I'm happy to put that in.
Does anyone else want to share, like, what do your reading supports look like? I can tell you in Green Bay, it's not pretty. We utilize Unique, and I think we're Yeah. So I think we have a lot of growth to do in this area. I'm curious what other people are doing.
You know, one of the reasons, and I know you can turn this off if someone pop in and make me stop talking. So, but I'll fill the space with talking because that's just what I seem to do. But one of the things, and I know that you can turn off the symbol of text on in Unique for your learners, but it just kept popping back on, and I just had gotten to the point where I was feeling like I didn't have enough control, and I'm a big control freak, and I really wanted to make sure that I had that. And I think, creating my own lesson plans, creating all those materials, and not having, a resource like Readtopia in the beginning was important for me to go through those steps, and feel that, and really, and make the mistakes, and learn from them. And then also that, that idea of just pulling apart, just squeezing those apart, that language using AAC symbols, the writing with letters and the writing with words. And that was important process, I think.
And I think for so long, so many people have focused so much on symbolated text. And so it is very much a shift in thinking. And so you kind of question what you've done in the past. And I mean, it is what it is. and I think,
Right.
Sharon, you did a really great job of explaining, that you can use symbols for communication, and you can use those 26 letters of the alphabet for writing, and those are different. And I liked how you explained that when you're writing, you put a period at the end of the sentence, and you're a writer. And I think it's just a shift of thinking, but sometimes it's hard to make those shifts and move away from what you know. So I think, I'm curious what others' experiences are. From our AT Forward meetings, I get the feeling that there are a lot of people that use Readtopia, and there are a lot of districts that are using Unique, and there's a lot of districts that are maybe not using it either. So
both. I use both.
Yeah. That's awesome that you have access to both, Mike. That's really great.
Letter.
Oh, you use both letters and symbols. Yeah, got you. I thought you were saying Readtopia and Unique. And I'm like, what? My brain's going, yeah, letters and symbols. Yeah. And I just really, because I know that you do use a lot of symbols when you're putting together like written presentations, so it's just an interesting piece. And I think it's just, what the other piece that it does for me is that I get to celebrate my kids. Like, oh, you put a period there. You were an author. Like, look at you being an author using your letters and your words and your talker. Like, that's amazing. So I'm really being able to name that and be able to share that excitement with them, and how that can be really cool. So it doesn't always feel like work because it's tough stuff.
We use Unique in the 6 districts that I work in with as well. But I feel like we are really evolving in the sense that maybe we didn't really have much prior to having Unique. And now we're going to be doing a book study on comprehensive literacy for all, a colleague and I. So I'm just really hopeful that we evolve into what we're doing. And we've done some professional development on the alternative pencils and predictable writing charts. And so I'm just excited for what's to come, because I think it's a really exciting time.
And like Sharon said numerous times, when you know better, you do better. So we're starting to know better. And it's sometimes those baby steps of again, getting that buy-in so that you can, shift to something different, but you have to put in that work first.
I hate to admit it, but I have books on my shelf that's right under me right now with symbolic text in them that I've done way back in, like the early 2000s. So, yeah, no, it just, you know better, you do better. They're collecting dust now, thank goodness.
Starting.
I was so excited. That's why I mentioned, like, oh, sorry.
Book. Study. Awesome job on starting a book study.
Mhm.
Thanks, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, Annie, you're just gonna love it. And hopefully yours is as, bookmarked and tabbed and highlighted and scribbled in. And when I don't have a highlighter, I'm circling it with pen and yeah.
And we did one already with my colleagues, so, and three of us, and then now we're gonna bring on about 25 people, so.
Wow.
That's very cool.
We're just embarking on that, aren't we, Jennifer? What I was going to say before was I mentioned that I had just done this. We just looked at predictive writing today. We did shared reading last week, all those different pieces.
Mhm.
And then I forgot about this and realized this was today. And just to get that information when it was so fresh in my mind.
Mhm.
And so you made it so exciting and adventurous. And I just really appreciate that. And I hope even with this recording, we can share this with more people and use it as a training tool too. So just really excited. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie. Good timing. That's awesome. And it's nice to see real world experiences, and they're messy and, sometimes it doesn't go very well. And, I have an 8-minute video that I have to bring down in order to transfer it on my phone and my really bad internet, so.
I am after DPI. To start. 1. 4. I N C. Include. Inclusion. Three. 5. 6. 5. I am after DPI to start one for inclusion 365.
We're actually next year here in Washington State. That's our next book study is Inclusion 365. And I'm partnering up with the people who are running that one. Rose Riccati, I'm not sure, she's an OT and has done quite a bit of work in the field and speaks nationally as well. And anyway, I'm going to be their guinea pig. So we'll see how this works. So we're going to do the book study, and then I'm going to take those things and I'm going to try them out in our school and then create a presentation about how it went. So we will see how.
And that sounds like a great WATRN topic for next year.
Yeah, that looks good.
Our spring meeting 2022. Planning, check.
Get it on your calendar.
Multitasking the best, right, Jennifer? That's great.
Sharon can bring her engagement and enthusiasm back to us, so it'll be great. Well, thank you again, Sharon. This was amazing, and maybe we can have you back even and do some updates, and maybe some of the people that attended today, as they try things, have sort of an update on how things are going and what's working and what's not working.
You know what I'm super excited about, and I'll give you an update, is that Don Johnson is actually going to come and observe my class at the end of our next lesson. And because I have knitters in my community that are knitting little finger puppets for all the animals and Dr. Dolittle. So we're having a little play, a little puppet play. And so Don's going to come in and he's going to be one of our observers, our attendees for our little time. So I'm super excited about that. So I'll let you guys know how that goes next time.
Do they want to join both states?
Oh, our group? Oh, I can ask. Yeah, I can ask. I mean, anybody I think is allowed to attend these webinars and this book study in the state of Washington. It's just you signing up for that. So, but yeah, that would be great.
Is that through SETC again, Sharon?
Through SETC, yeah. You just go to the SETC website. I present for them throughout the year. We'll be doing a few more. I really want to comprehensive literacy instruction, kind of bring it back for next year and make sure, people are just starting this journey. So I don't want to leave that out and just have, bring it back, and hopefully I'll have more things to say. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that last year. Can you even believe? Here, I know better. I'm going to do better. So yeah. But yeah, so that's exciting things are happening. And thank you for the opportunity to come and chat.
Anytime, Sharon, anytime.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Sue.
Is it just you
Hi,
guys?
Sue.
Or did I just say hi to the whole world?
There's not too many of us left.
Only 13 of us.